more types of memories inside the computer system: the virtual memory and the cache memory. Now, what is that cache memory? It is a memory which is there inside your processor itself, and it is called as very small memory, but the fastest memory. Now, why very small? Because since it is inside the processor, therefore the size is very small. It is in KBs, not even in MBs. Why it is called as fastest? Because if I, being a processor, if I want to search any data, I will first search inside myself. If it is not found, then I go inside the primary memory, and still if it is not found, then I go inside the hard disk, that is secondary memory. And if it is not found in either of three, that means it is not there inside your system. So the fourth memory is your virtual memory. This memory is created only when a user gives a demand for. Otherwise, this memory is not being created. And by whom it is created? It is created by the user itself. Where it is created? It is created as a part of a RAM. Now, what is that RAM? Again, it is a primary memory. Whatever I have to execute, I have to bring inside my primary memory. So what is a system doing? Whenever a user requests for this virtual memory, what will a system do? The system will delete all the system files or the system configuration files and the temporary files for temporary purpose, and it will allocate that space which is called as virtual memory for the only for the purpose of execution. Once when the execution is completed and the result is displayed to the user, the system will swap in that configuration and temporary files back inside the RAM. That means a virtual memory is some temporary space which is created inside the RAM by the system by deleting some of the configuration files and temporary files for temporary purpose. So here comes in that method of swap in and swap out. So what is swap out? All the configuration files and temporary files are swap out. The program is being loaded. The program is being executed. Once the data is being displayed in the form of a result to the user, that program will be swapped out after the completion, and this temporary files which were swapped out previously will be swapped in as it is, which means I am showing it to the user that I have created the space for the execution of your program, but I am not deleting any of the files of the system. Okay, that is what is called as a virtual memory. So similar virtual memory is there inside your Linux operating system also. How it is created? Again, it is created in the same manner as I just explained. Either it will remove some of the unused block, or if each and every block is filled, it will use this mechanism of swap in and swap out. That is what is called as virtual memory. So your virtual memory of your Windows and the virtual memory of your Linux operating system is same. The concept and the working both is same. Is this clear? What is virtual memory? Jainam?
Yes, ma'am.
The next topic is shared libraries. Now, what do you mean by shared libraries? Linux have two types of libraries. Now, what do I do with this Linux operating system is either I execute some commands or I type certain programs and I execute the result of those programs. Now, those programs can be written with the help of those commands, or I can make use of some editors like VI editor. How we have Notepad as an editor in our Windows. Similarly, the editor of a Linux is called as VI. So I can use that VI editor to type my program or type those Linux command and execute them. Or I can also type some C programs in my Linux, how you can type in your Windows operating system. So whenever I type these C programs or whenever I try to execute these C programs, I require certain libraries to be imported for the execution of the program. So those libraries belong to two classes, the static library and the dynamic library or the shared library. Now, what is static? Static means that they are fit. That means I cannot change them. They will automatically get activated when the compiling of the program is done. That means, in short, I do not have to write them. They will automatically get activated whenever the compile time of a program comes. But what are those dynamic libraries? Dynamic libraries means I have to add those lines into my program to make that program function. That is what is called as dynamic or shared libraries. In static, I do not have to write them. They are automatically added to my program at a compile time. Whereas if it is dynamic or shared, I have to mention them inside the program so that I complete the entire execution of the program. Now, what are those dynamic libraries? If you see, one of the library is called as libc. Now, what is that libc? libc, what is that libc? It is used for writing a standard C program. So if I write a C program for addition of two numbers, so for this I have to import certain set of the libraries with respect to Linux operating system. So which kind of library do I make use of? It is the libc, which is used for any standard C program. Then if it is glibc, what is that glibc? It is a GNU version of standard library. Now, GNU version of a standard library means what? If I am writing some programs which are not basic, but which are little higher level programs, which will require some other components, other resources, or some other data from another program. If I want to do so, I will include this GNU version of the standard library. Next is libcurl library. Now, what is this libcurl library? It is a multi-protocol file transfer library, which means what? If I want to transfer a file, that means if I want to transfer that program from my machine and execute it on the server machine. Why will I execute it on a server machine? Suppose I do not have a software, or if that software is very, or the size of the software is very big, I cannot install it on my system. So I may try it to execute on the server. So if I want to send that file from a client machine to a server machine, I will require this extra line to be written into my program. So I have to import this extra library inside my program so that the file will go from my client machine to the server machine, and then it will execute there on the server machine. Next type of library is libcrypt. Now, what is that libcrypt? This crypt stands for cryptography. Now, we had seen 3 levels of security. The first one was authentication, authorization, and encryption. So I had told you in encryption, we make use of some algorithm which will convert your password into an unreadable format. And if you have a private key, then only you can crack that password. Otherwise, you will not able to do anything with that password. So if I want a program to be getted encrypted in some format, and then if I transfer it to someone else, so to do that procedure, I require this library that is called as libcrypt. So it is used for encryption. Encryption means converting entirely into an unreadable format and then sending it over the internet. So even if an attacker takes that program, he will not be able to read anything. Why? Because it is in an encrypted format. Again, what is hashing? Hashing is also one type of a algorithm which is used to convert this data into an unreadable format. So how we used a private and a public key if it is a encryption algorithm. Similarly, if it is a hashing algorithm, I make use of a key called as hash key. This you might be knowing as it is done in the data structure. If I'm not wrong, hashing was there to you in the data structure. Smith, any one of you was hashing there?
No,
नहीं था? अच्छा ठीक है. So hashing is one of the algorithm to convert in an encrypted format by using the key called as hash key. Okay, so if I want to transfer any such kind of a data in an unreadable format, I use a extension or I use a library called as libcrypt. So these are the libraries which required a support in your C programs inside a Linux operating system. If it is a simple program, I just have to include a standard library. But if it is beyond simple programs, I have to, they are distinguished as per the needs. Okay, now next is called as cron scheduler. Now, if you remember, I had told you something that in Linux, if you want to take or if you want something to run in a background, you make use of ampersand. So cron scheduler is also one type of a command which is used to send the documents or make the documents run in a background, or they are used to take a backup in a background, used to execute some files in the background. So ampersand is one of the way. to send in the background for execution, and the other command is the cron command, CRON, and the entire name of a command is a cron tab command. So if you see, a user can schedule and run the task in a background automatically at certain regular intervals of time by making use of this cron command. So with this help of this command, a user can schedule that at 12 o'clock backup of ABC file will be taken. At 1 o'clock backup of XYZ file will be taken. So I have kept a regular interval of 1 hour, that is first backup at 12, then next backup at 1. So all this backup will be happening automatically in the background with the help of what? With the help of these cron tab command. Okay, but what is the disadvantage? Who uses this command? It is used only by the system administrator. If you are a normal user, you cannot make use of this cron command, but you can always make use of that ampersand command. Okay, so if you are a root user, that is the admin, I can use ampersand also, as well as I can use this cron tab command. But if you are a normal user, you can be able to use only the ampersand. You cannot use this cron tab command. Now you can automate this process, like you can take a backup, schedule some updates, synchronize the files, and many more. That means whatever being an admin, if you want to do anything in the background, everything is possible with this cron tab command. Each user can have their own cron tab to create, modify, and delete the task. That means you can create this command with some files, you can modify those command with the same file, as well as you can delete the command with the same file. How do we do this? We'll see in the next slides. By default, cron is enabled to users. However, we can restrict adding the entry inside the etc/cron.deny file. Now, what is this? Being an administrator, I can always give you the rights to each and every command. That means, though it is said that cron tab is used only by the system administrator, but if, say, suppose Smith is a user, normal user, but if I make Smith also the owner of some of the files, being the administrator, I can also give the execution of cron tab command to Smith also. But how I will give it? Being a user, I have to transfer, or I have to give that ownership to the Smith, being a normal user. So unless and until I do not transfer this ownership, none of the user is allowed to use this command. So if the command is being permitted by the administrator to use, the user can use. But if it is not permitted by the administrator, the normal user cannot use. But whenever I am transferring this ownership, what is happening? Whatever that Smith as a user will be doing, whatever that user does, the entry of that will not be made in this file. What is that file? /etc cron.deny file, which means what? Whatever that user does, Smith user does, every entry of that will not be made in this file. Whereas if I am an administrator, whatever I do, each and every entry will be made into this file. So the restriction of the user, even after the transfer of ownership, is that even if a user does anything in the background, that entry will not be made anywhere inside the system. But if the same command is executed by the admin or by the root user, every entry will be made in this cron.deny file. And where is that file? It is there inside the etc folder. Is this clear? Then next is the cron tab file consists of command per line and has 6 fields. That means it is one single command in one line which has 6 different fields. Okay, and each and every field is separated either by the space or a tab. That means in between all those 6 fields, you have to give a tab or you have to give a space. So the beginning 5 fields represent time to run a task, and the last field is the command. That means from the 6 field, only the last field is the command field, and the remaining 5 field is the time when you want those tasks to be run. Why? Because it is running at a certain intervals. So if I want it to run on certain intervals, I have to give the time. So where I am specifying the time in the first 5 fields, and what I am mentioning in the last field is the command which has to be executed. So what is the first field? It is minute. That means the value from 0 to 59. That means if I write 23, which means what? It will execute on 23 minute. So the first field is of minute. Second field is hour. So if I write 23 space 1, which means what? It will start at 1 o'clock on 23 minute. Again, if I say the next field is day of the month, day of the month holds the values from 1 to 31. So if I write 7, which means what? At 1 o'clock on 7th of the day at 23 minutes, the execution or the background processing will start. Next field is the month of the year, which is from 1 to 12. So I have mentioned the minute, I have mentioned the hour, I have mentioned the day, but I have not specified the month. So now if I specify the month as 2, so on February 7th at 1 o'clock and at 23rd minute, the execution of background processing will start. Okay. You can also use first 3 letters of the month. That is, if you don't want to write these numbers, you can always use the first 3 letters. So for Feb, I can always use FEB. For March, I can use MAR and so on. But this cannot be done for minutes, hours and day. It is only allowed for the month. Next, I can also specify on which day of the week. That is holding the value from 0 to 6 or from Sunday to Saturday. That is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like this till Saturday. So Sunday is given with a number 0, Monday is given with a number 1, Tuesday is given with number 2 and so on. Again, if you don't want to write the number, you can always specify the first 3 letters. So if I wanted to start on Monday, I can write MON. So I've mentioned the minute, I have mentioned hour, I have told on which day of the month, I have told which day of the week, I have also specified the month, and the last now I will specify is the command. If at all I don't want to specify any one of this, I can always put a asterisk mark, which means what? I have not mentioned that particular field. So if I don't want to mention minute, I can put star. At hour, I can write 2. At day, I can write 1. Month, I can write Jan, like this. So it is not compulsory to mention all. If at all, if you don't want to mention any of these, you can always put star. But yes, this command is always compulsory. The asterisk can be used only in the first 5 fields. Command is always compulsory. So if you see, this is how the command looks like. Okay, what is happening now? Again, if you see, the shell over here is hash. Now what is the shell that we'll do in today's lecture? Now if you remember, I had told you in the first lecture, if you get hash, it is for the root, and if you get a dollar, it is for the user. So who can execute this command? Only the admin. Therefore, which is the shell that is used? It is the root shell that is being used. So hash is for the root user. So by this also I can identify it as what type of a user, whether it is a root user or if it is a normal user. But as I said, if I transfer that ownership to any one of you, for example, Smith, and if a Smith is also executing the command, he'll also get this hash only. Why? Because administrator has transferred the ownership and then only he is allowed. But for the normal, any of the normal user, you will not get this shell as hash. You will always get a dollar. Now, what is this first command? List cron tab entries. List cron tab entries means what? Whatever cron tab commands get that which are executed so far by the root user, I will get to see every one of them. By using which command? By using cron tab -L. So what is that L? It is used for listing. Either I use L or I make use of ls. Both are used for listing purpose. So if I say only #ls, it will list me all the files that are there inside the folder, inside the system. But now I am using this L with cron tab. So what it will do what it will show me? Only the list of all the cron tab commands executed by the root user. So when I execute this, I get to see this output. What is that? 0010 **/bin/ls/ls.text. Now what is this? What is the meaning of this? 00 is what? Minute. Then 10 was for what? It was for hour. Then this star was for what? The month. Then what do we, day of the month. Then next star was for the month of the year. And the next star is for the day of the week. So what I have told that I do not want to mention that what is the what is the not hour, what is the day of the month, what is the month of the year, and what is the day of the week. I have just mentioned that at 10 o'clock, at the 10th hour, every time it should execute this particular command in background. which command? ls.text. What is that ls.text? It will list or it will open the file then where the name of the file is ls.text. Where is that file? That file is located inside the ls folder, which is inside the bin folder. So when I execute this command, what is this command going to do? First of all, it will execute at 10th o'clock, 10th hour. Okay. What it is supposed to be execute? It is supposed to execute or open the file ls.text. What will happen is every day it will keep on happening this. Why? Because I have not specified the month. I have not specified the day of the month, and neither I have specified the week. So it will keep on happening every day in the loop. That is, every day at 10 o'clock, this file will open in the background and it will close until the next command is not coming. Is this understood? Any one of you? Okay. So this was the first cron tab command. Now if I go to the second command, as I said, you can also edit those commands. So if it is a root user, the edit details will be stored in your etc. But if the ownership is transferred, whatever I edit, the details will not be stored. Now which is a command to use the edit? To edit a cron tab entry, we make use of -e option. In the below example, we have opened schedule jobs in VI editor, made a necessary changes and quit it by pressing a :WQ keys, which saves the setting automatically. Now, as I told you that in Linux operating system, you have a editor, and the name of that editor is VI editor, which is similar to your notepad, only the name is changed. From notepad, it has been changed to VI. So can I edit something in the notepad? Yes. Similarly, I can edit in the VI editor also. Can I save it in the notepad? Yes. By pressing Ctrl+C, I can save in the notepad. But in VI editor, if I want to save anything, how do I save it? By using this :WQ. So I will press colon on the keyboard and I will press WQ on the keyboard. So after pressing :WQ, when I press enter, whatever I have written inside that file, everything gets saved. So if at all I have written this command 0010 **/bin/ls ls.text. If I had written this command, now if I want to change this command, instead of this text file, I want to give a text file, say abc.text. So what is the first step? I have to edit this command. So how I am supposed to edit? By using this command cron tab -e. So after this command, when I write cron tab -e, what it will allow? It will allow me to edit this command. So what will I do? I will backspace and replace this with abc.text. Now, since I have replaced, I also need to save it, because if I do not save it, it will continuously use this ls.text command only. So to save that, I will type :WQ and then press enter. So this is how you edit any particular command inside your VI editor. Where are these all commands written? These all commands are written inside your VI editor. Therefore, we are opening VI editor and then editing those commands. Is this clear? Aditya?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. So this is how you type the commands and how you are supposed to edit. After the editing is done, you are also supposed to save them. If you don't save them, that means you have not done any of the editing work. Again, if this editing is done by normal admin, that is the main admin, then the entries will be made inside etc. But again, if I have transferred it to, say, suppose Aditi, and if Aditi does all this, details will not be saved inside /etc. Now if I want to remove these entries, that means मेरा काम हो चुका है, अभी मुझे बार बार यही सेम कमांड को बैकग्राउंड में नहीं रन करना है ls.text को. I want to remove this. So how will I remove this? Again, I will log in into I will start my VI editor. Again, I will use a command to edit, that is crontab.e, and backspace करके पूरा remove कर दो. That is the one option. Second option is directly use a command with a -r. So what will that -r do? The -r will allow you to remove all the entries of the cron tab command inside your VI editor. So cron tab with -r parameter will remove all the schedule jobs without the confirmation. Now, without the confirmation means what? If I want to close this PPT and if I have saved something, sorry, if I've written something, so before closing, it will always give you a message box if it is a Windows, that do you want to save, yes or no. Then if you want to save, you click on yes. If you don't want to save, you click on no. आपको बिना पूछे डायरेक्टली वो क्लोज करता है क्या? नहीं करता है. तो सेम happens in your Linux also. What is happening in Linux? If you are using only R command without your permission, it will directly remove. But if you use this R with the I option, I stands for interactive. So it will always ask you, see, if I stands for interactive. So when I write R with I, what it will tell me, really delete the root cron tab, and then if you press Y, it will get removed. So this is what is interactive. So if I don't make use of that interactive, it will not ask me anything and everything will be removed. But if I use that R with I, it will always ask me that do you want to completely remove, and then when I press yes, that is Y, it will remove. And if I press no, that is N, then it will not remove. Okay, so we don't have some messages box in Linux. We give the command of yes and no by typing Y or N. So Y stands for yes and N stands for no. So after this command comes, and if I press N, so it will not remove. But if I press Y, it will completely remove. So is it understood how to remove the cron tab entry? If you want to remove it without permission, use directly -R. But if you want to use with permission, that is an interactive type, you always have to make use of -I. Okay, and this is not specific to cron tab command. It can be any command. If I make use of make directory, that is mkdir. So again, if I use it with -I while removing, it will ask me. So this I can be used with any of the commands of all the Linux operating system if you want something to be asked by the system to the user. So it is not specific to the cron tab. Then next we have system-wide cron schedule. System-wide cron schedule means what? What is a one way to do is either you write all this. You write the month, you write minute, you write date, you write day of the week, and then command. What is the other ones? These are the predefined commands. Like how we have ls predefined, cron tab predefined, remove predefined, change the owner as predefined. So similarly, we have the cron commands or cron schedule commands which are predefined. Now what are they? When I type /etc/cron.d, or if I type /etc/cron.daily or .hourly.monthly.weekly. So what it will do, automatically on one particular day, it will take a backup. If I write daily, it will take the backup daily. If I write hourly, it will take the backup at every hour. If I write monthly, it will take on any one day of the month. And if I write weekly, it will take once in a week. So if I do not want to mention specifically कि कब चाहिए, I can also use any one of these. Okay, so when I use any one of these, what will happen? It will automatically take a backup either day wise or daily or hourly or monthly or weekly. Okay, now you can always use these commands with this particular command also. That means इसके आगे मैंने daily निकाल दिया, लिख लिया, तो what will happen? Daily at 10 o'clock it will take the backup. So it is not necessary that you can use it separately. You can also combine these predefined with the previous commands. So how do you do that? If I mention dot daily, sorry, not dot daily. If I simply write daily over here next to your LX text, what will happen? Daily at 10 o'clock, it will take the backup, or it will start ls.txt running in the background. If I write monthly over here, what will happen? Once in a month at 10 o'clock, it will start running this particular ls.txt file in the background. If I take hourly, if I write hourly, what will happen? Then it will not consider this 10. It will consider hourly, and at every hour, it will keep on running this ls.txt in the background. So you can always combine any of these commands with the previous commands. But if at all you have mentioned the exact time, it will not consider these times when you write those predefined, because the choice is first given to the predefined commands and then to the human written commands. Okay, so if you add predefined and the human written, the first priority is given to the that is the predefined commands. Clear up till here? Everyone? Any Aditi, clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Now again, there is a next example, that is cron tab -e. So what I'm doing is I have opened my VI editor and I'm editing some command. Which is that command? It may be this command. So what I'm doing from the command, what I can read is I have to delete something. What I have to delete? I have to delete the file which is inside the folder /tmp. Do I have a directory called as tmp? Yes. What is that? It stores a temporary file. What is the name of that file? #type f #empty. This is what it is, the name of the file which is there inside the temp. So I have to find that file and delete that file. But this should happen where? It should happen in the background. Why in the background? Because I have written cron tab. So it will happen in the background. But at what time it should happen? It should happen at 30 minutes 0. 30 minutes 0 means at 12:30 it should happen. Have I mentioned any month, year or something like this? No. So at 12:30, the root user will be executing this command in the background. And what is that command? That command is to delete the file named as this inside the tmp folder. Okay. Then the special strings for common schedules. Special strings for common schedule means we have certain string commands like reboot, daily, weekly, yearly. If I say reboot, which means what? If I simply type this command @reboot, what will happen? It will make the system to reboot. That is how we have restart in our Windows operating system. We do not have a restart in Windows. We call it as reboot. So when I open a command prompt and when I type this string as @reboot, my system will restart. Then what? If I type @daily, what will happen? It will happen once in a week, but every day. And when it will happen once in a day, every time, it will happen at the midnight. So if I have written @daily, that means today at 12 midnight at 12, it will execute some command. Same tomorrow also at 12 o'clock, it will execute the command. If I type @weekly, that means it will be executed once in a week. And if I write yearly, that means it will be executed once in a year. So apart from this entire command, you can also use the strings like this to execute either daily, weekly, or yearly. See, for example, I have used over here @daily. So what is going to happen? This command and this command will be executed daily. Now, if you see here, there are two commands being used, but previously we had used only one command. Again, in that previous example also we had used one command. So if I want to use more than one command, how am I supposed to do that? I am supposed to join them with an double ampersand. So what is a function of double ampersand? It allows us to use multiple commands. So daily command 1 and command 2 will be executed in the background. Again, when I'm writing @daily means at what time? At midnight, 12 o'clock. Every time, every day, command 1 will also be executed in the background and command 2 will also be executed in the background. If I write @yearly, command 1 and command 2, which means what? Once in a year, command 1 and command 2 both will be running in the background at the same time. This is how you can combine multiple commands. So this was all about your cron scheduler. So it is used only by a root user for executing something in a background with respect to 6 fields, out of which the last field is compulsory, which is the command 1, and the previous 5 can be changed with the predefined commands or with the user defined commands or writing or by using certain kind of strings. And the entry of every cron tab command is made inside the cron.deny file. But if the transfer of the ownership is happening from root user to normal user, then those details will not be mentioned in that cron.deny file. Is this clear? This cron tab command? Ali?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now next, last part of your first chapter is advantages of the Linux. What are the advantages? It is an open source. That means freely available. You do not have to pay anywhere. You have 3 levels of security. Along with that, we have also seen one new level of security, which is hashing, which is there with the help of some libraries. Then faster software updates. Whatever update of any of the version you get, or any of the features or any of the application, is faster with the help of the development tools. So you straight away only download the development tools, you get the updates for that software. Again, customization means what? You can, it is not only going to work with the specific requirements. If you change the requirements, your Linux operating system will work with all the requirements. It is not necessary that it is going to be work only if your RAM is of 8 GB. Even if it is of 2 GB or 4 GB, your Linux will be working on it. Various distribution, that means it has multiple versions, and every version has something or other new into it. Since it is open source, so it is also free to use. We do not have to pay anything. Large community support. What is this large community support? If you remember in the distinguish, I had explained you that anybody who joins that particular community, the code is given to that person, and then he can always add and delete in that particular code. So anybody is allowed to add themselves in that particular community to make in the changes inside the operating system. What is stability? If I have decided that I am supposed to install it into the RAM of 4 GB and hard disk of 500 GB, it will always give me a stable performance. Even if I started today, or if I started after 10 days, or even if I started after 1 year. So I am going to get a stable performance as and when I open the system. Again, what is privacy? It is related to your security, but here the privacy is with respect to your files and folders, which is nothing but the authorization of your security. Then performance, you have a very good performance, and the performance always keeps on increasing. You have the network support, you have compatibility and every software. The installation is also very easy and fast, and tasking. Advantages. Now, what is the evolution of a Linux? So who had developed this? It was developed by a person called as Linus Torvalds. Therefore, the name of the system is Linux. And when it was developed in the year 1991. So the first microprocessor on which this operating system was installed was 8086. Then it was installed on all the different processor, and now it is working even in i3, i4 and i5 also. Linux and Unix are same, but whereas it is implemented on the Unix API. Unix API means, what is this API? Application Programming Interface. That means I have made use of Unix programming code to develop my Linux operating system. Okay, that is what is called as API. That means when I use some predefined structure and predefined coding languages or coding programs, and then if I develop something new, I call it as API. Okay, your Android always have different API. Why? Because it is always developed from the code of the previous version. So if today I am using M, if I want to develop N version, what will I do? I will use the code of M, only add the extra code for new features of N, and come out with the N version. So if I am using something which is already developed, I call it as API. It is used in areas such as embedded devices all the way to mainframes. That means it is used in your embedded devices till mainframe. Means what? What are embedded devices? Your your ovens, washing machine, all these are considered to be as embedded devices. So your Linux is, as an operating system, is used in the embedded devices also, as well as it is used in computers. So mainframes are the computers. Mainframe, mini frame, supercomputers. So it supports all the computers right from the mainframe, as well as it supports all the embedded devices also. We had already seen the structure of the Linux operating system. That is, we have seen the kernel, we have seen system libraries. The only thing that we have not seen is the shell. If you see this diagram, we have utilities, which are nothing but called as application. What are the applications? Your Paint, MS Word, anything that a user install is considered to be as applications. Then you have a shell, and then you have a kernel, and then you have a hardware. So now applications can be your programs also, or the processes also, P1, P2, P3 process. So if I had shown you one diagram, if you remember, it is there in the same PPT. These are nothing but the applications. Then we have kernel and then we have hardware. But if you see the diagram which I just showed you, you had something over here called as shell also. So we had already seen we know what are these applications, we know what is kernel, and we know what is hardware. What is that hardware? All your computers, printers, disk, anything as a hardware that you install comes in this hardware. Who allows your hardware to interact with this application? It is the kernel part. But who is allowing your kernel and your applications to interact? It is nothing but the shell. So whatever system calls which we are studying up till now, your system calls are also the part of your shell. So the communication between the program and kernel is done by the shell and system calls, and the communication between your hardware and your programs is done with the help of the kernel. Now, what is that shell? A place where I write my commands. That means where I write my command means where the user writes a command. So user is allowed to interact with the kernel or with the system with the help of this shell. So that terminal which I open and which I present to the user for typing the command is nothing but the interface which is joining the user and the hardware part of the computer system. When I write those commands, who is accepting those commands? It is nothing but the kernel who is accepting. And then with the help of hardware, it will execute those commands. So if you see this background, black in color, purple in color, this is nothing but the shell. What am I doing as a user? I'm typing these commands. So this is nothing but the shell allowing user to interact with the system by writing these commands on the terminal. And what is that terminal called as? Shell. So we have two type of shell. One is for the root and one is for the user. The one for the root is called as hash, and the other for the user is called as bash, B-A-S-H. Okay, and if it is Unix, we make use of Bourne shell. But since we are learning Linux, so we'll remember only the bash shell. And how is that bash written? It is written in the form of a dollar. Okay, so if I get to see dollar over here, which means it is a which shell? A user shell or a bash shell. But if I get to see a hash over here, which means it is a root shell. Okay, and how does that shell looks? It is like this. But if in the Linux, it is purple in color. Linux version from 14 to 16, which we will be installing, that has purple color over here. This may be some different version, therefore you can see black here, but the one which we will be seeing will have a purple color. Okay, so shell is nothing but a terminal which allows a user to write the commands, and those commands are then given to the kernel for the execution. Okay, we have different types of kernel. Just for the name, it is monolithic, micro, exo, hybrid. We do not have these in details. So it keeps on changing, but a function of each and every kernel is same. Okay. So this is the command at this is a diagram. At hardware level, we have CPU, RAM, IO. Then we have kernel modules and kernels. Then we have system libraries, or we can call it as shell, or we can call it as system calls, which allows a communication from these application level to the hardware level. And then at the top, we have softwares, we have processes, user utilities, some kind of compilers. So this will always keep on changing depending on user to user. Again, this is the same architecture. We have applications, so I can have VI editor, CD as an application, grep as application, some date as an example, some a.out as a program, which is executed by 1, 2, 3 and multiple users. Then how are those applications reached to your hardware? Through shell. Shell further communicates with kernel, and then they are given to the hardware. After this part is after the execution is done, again with the help of shell, they are displayed as a result to the user. Okay, so where you get to see the output is on that shell only, the place where you give the input. So input and output can be seen on your shell. This is how your architecture or the Linux system works. So either you can draw this diagram or you draw this diagram, it is same. Understood? or you draw this diagram. Anyone can be drawn from all the three. So with this, we complete with the first lesson, Introduction to Linux. Is this clear up till here? Any doubts? Any one of you?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Harsh? Any doubts, Harsh?
Ma'am, the WQ key stands for what?
W key is just used for saving whatever you have written. It doesn't stand for it. W and Q doesn't stand for anything. WQ is a command which is used to save. How do we have control S? Control and S does not have any meaning. Just to save, we make use of WQ, :WQ. So you can say that instead of control S for saving, the command used for saving is :WQ. That's it.
Okay, ma'am.
My mic is not working. Okay. Okay, so now on Thursday when we meet, we'll have an online test which will be based on a timer. So I will, first we'll start with the test, and if at all the time is there, we'll start with the second lesson. We'll have two quiz. First quiz will be on first half of the chapter, and the second quiz will be on the second half of the chapter. That means in short, you have to completely study entire chapter. You will be given with two quiz for some amount of time, maybe 30 minutes or 15 minutes based on the questions. And the questions, the link of the this thing quiz will be given to you in the classroom. Once you click on that link, again a unique link will be sent to your email. And that unique link will be unique to all the 70 students. That means you cannot share that link with your friends and give the friends exam. If at all that will happen, I will come to know on the screen. So coming Thursday, you will have two quiz on chapter 1, which will be time based. You will get a link, common link on the classroom. As soon as you click on that link of the classroom, a separate link will be sent to you on your email. And using that email link, you have to use the form to give the quiz. Is that clear? So see to it that every one of you remain present. And if at all you have any problem, please write to me in email by Wednesday.
Ma'am, what type of questions will be there?
It will be multiple choice, fill in the blanks and match the column, or some short answer, but it won't be any descriptive long answer question. One word, fill in the blanks, match the column, MCQ, true or false. ऐसा सब रहेगा. It will not be big theory type questions, because you have to give the answer at that particular time only. And remember one thing, these marks will be counted either for your assignments or for your test. This is not clear right now. We don't have any instruction. We just only know that it will be counted. So see to it that you give it sincerely and score marks. Since it is coded, so you have to keep that thing in your mind. Is this clear?
Ma'am. Ma'am, in the syllabus, there are terms like info page, command line, then graphical login and virtual console login. Have you completed?
एक मिनट. Let me check. 1 minute. हाँ, man command and info command. Okay. और क्या बोला आपने?
Graphical login or virtual console login.
Yes. Okay, so what we'll do one thing. I will come. 1 minute. It is 1.4, right?
1.4, yes.
हाँ, ठीक है. So in shell prompt को छोड़ के बाकी है ना? Okay. So I'll do one thing. I'll complete these commands first in the Thursday's lecture, and then we'll take a test. But this I won't include this part 1.4 in the test. Okay. Okay. Anything else? Okay, so you all can leave and we'll meet on Thursday with finishing 1.4 first and followed by 2 tests. Okay, those who are absent, please send messages to them.